Mr. Speaker, we can look at the content, but if the ban is unnecessary, then why is it that they've started a review? Just last week, his education secretary called a ban a big gimmick, yet teachers and head teachers say the evidence already shows that schools that ban phones get better results. And he's wrong. Not all schools do this. Only 1 in 10 schools are smartphone free. So will he U-turn on this?
We need to ensure that all schools do this, but the vast majority do.
Sure. It's been expanded to approximately 1,400 words, avoiding repeated phrases and keeping the message clear and engaging. No one expected Keir Starmer to embarrass himself like this in Parliament. No one ever thought Keir Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party, would put himself in such an awkward position, especially not so publicly. But that's exactly what happened in Parliament. In front of the entire chamber, he was mocked and caught off guard. He seemed unsure, confused, and completely unprepared to respond. The moment he tried to speak, the whole room erupted, drowning out his words with laughter and criticism. So, what actually happened that led to this dramatic scene? What did Conservative MP Kemi Badenoch say that left Starmer struggling for a comeback? And why was the issue so explosive that it caused such a reaction from everyone in the room? This all started with a proposed rule to ban mobile phones in schools, a policy many parents and teachers have been calling for. Keir Starmer and the Labour Party decided to vote against this proposal, and that decision sparked outrage. The move backfired on Starmer in the most public way possible. Let's break it down. The Conservative Party, led in this debate by Education Secretary Kemi Badenoch, proposed an amendment to the Children's Well-Being in Schools Bill. This change would require all schools to ban the use of mobile phones during school hours.
But first, let's turn to another government minister who is making a mess of her brief, the Education Secretary. Why did Labour MPs vote against banning phones in schools last week?
Prime Minister? Because it's completely unnecessary. I've got teenage children. Almost every school bans phones in school. They do it already. We need to concentrate on what's really important here, which is getting to the content that children shouldn't be accessing. That's where I would genuinely like to work across the House, because I think there's a huge amount of work to do. But the battle is not with schools that are already banning phones in school. The battle, and this is an important emerging battle, is to work together to ensure that we can ensure that the content that children are accessing, wherever they are, is...
The idea behind the proposal was simple: to reduce distractions, promote better focus in classrooms, and tackle issues like online bullying, cheating during exams, and exposure to harmful content. Smartphones have become a constant presence in students' lives, and many teachers say they're a major source of disruption. So, the Conservatives saw this as a clear way to improve school environments for both students and teachers. But when the time came to vote, Labour said no. Every single Labour MP following Starmer's lead voted against the amendment.
As you say, we are setting out measures in this landmark piece of legislation that will do a lot more to keep children safe. We have failed as a state far too many children for far too long. It's time that we get on and act. No more words, no more lessons learned. It's time to legislate, it's time to act, it's time to protect children, and making sure we've got clear visibility where children are being home educated is one of a number of very important measures that we'll be setting out today to Parliament.
During Prime Minister's Questions, the weekly session where party leaders challenge each other, Starmer was asked to explain his position. Rather than clearly answering, he downplayed the issue. He claimed banning phones was unnecessary, suggesting the problem wasn't the devices themselves, but rather the content students access on them. That's when Kemi Badenoch stepped in and firmly criticized his response. She pointed out that Starmer wasn't dealing with the real issue and accused him of trying to distract people from the truth. According to Badenoch, this wasn't just a minor disagreement over policy. It revealed a deeper problem with Labour's approach to education and discipline. She said Labour's decision showed a willingness to ignore a growing crisis in schools, digital distraction, misbehavior, and a lack of control in classrooms. She argued that Starmer had an opportunity to support something widely supported by teachers, parents, and even many students, but he chose not to. To support her argument, Badenoch pointed to real data. A study by Policy Exchange found that only 11% of secondary schools in the UK have a full ban on mobile phones. A survey of teachers confirmed that while many schools have rules in place, very few actually enforce them consistently during lesson time. On the other hand, 100% of primary schools ban mobile phones during the school day. Why? Because young children are easily distracted and educators know how much phones interfere with learning. The real problem, according to experts, is in secondary schools where students are often glued to their screens even during class.
Mr. Speaker, we can look at the content, but if the ban is unnecessary, then why is it that they've started a review? Just last week, his education secretary called a ban a bit gimmick, yet teachers and head teachers say the evidence already shows that schools that ban phones get better results. And he's wrong. Not all schools do this. Only 1 in 10 schools are smartphone free. So will he U-turn on this?
We need to ensure that all schools do this, but the vast majority do. It is really important that we focus on the battle we have to have with mobile phones, which is the content that children are able to access. And we need to ensure that that is controlled wherever they are. So it's a question of having the right battle on the right issue, not wasting time on something where almost all schools are already banning mobile.
So why wouldn't Labour support a solution that's already proven effective in younger classrooms? That's what left many people confused and why Starmer's explanation didn't sit well.
Mr. Speaker, she talks about the record of the last government. Under their watch, a third of children started school without appropriate level development, and that is not being able to use a knife and fork. A quarter left primary school without the required standard of reading, writing and maths, and 1 in 5 was regularly absent. That's why we're pushing up standards, more information from Ofsted, transparency for parents, more intervention.
Instead of offering a convincing reason for Labour's decision, Starmer tried to change the subject. He argued that the real concern wasn't the presence of phones, but rather what students are watching and doing on them. He shifted the focus from action to theory, saying it's more important to control content than to ban devices altogether. But many people saw this as a classic political move. Avoid the direct issue by steering the conversation towards something broader and harder to solve. It's like saying we shouldn't stop smoking in schools because the real issue is nicotine addiction, not cigarettes themselves. Even if that's partly true, it doesn't mean teenagers should be allowed to light up in class. The same logic applies to smartphones. While online content is definitely a concern, most people agree that the first step should be removing the devices from classrooms entirely.
We need to concentrate on what's really important here, which is getting to the content that children shouldn't be accessing. That's where I would genuinely like to work across the House, because I think there's a huge amount of...
Waiting for better content regulations could take years, and in the meantime, students are falling behind. By refusing to support a straightforward, practical solution, Starmer came across as more interested in sounding clever than in actually fixing the problem. At one point, Starmer tried to make the issue personal. He reminded everyone that he's a parent himself, as if that made his position more understandable. But his statement didn't have the effect he hoped. In fact, it made things worse. Being a parent doesn't automatically mean you're making the right decisions, especially when millions of other parents across the country are asking for stricter rules in schools. Many of them are calling for more discipline, better structure, and fewer distractions. In that context, using parenthood as a defense felt weak and even a little out of touch.
Mr. Speaker, it was Labour that introduced academies. We pushed up standards. And this is not ideological. I'm a parent of 2 teenage children, both of whom go to a state school. So I'm vested in this, and it matters hugely to me. Nothing ideological about it. That is why we're driving up standards, as we always...
If anything, being a parent should make someone more aware of the struggles students face. It should make leaders more committed to taking real action, not less. What makes this situation even more disappointing is that Starmer had everything in his favor. He had the majority in Parliament, strong public support for the idea, and a clear path to make a difference in schools. Yet he chose not only to ignore that path, but to actively block it. Critics argue that this wasn't just a bad decision, it was a chance to do something meaningful that he deliberately let pass by. And in doing so, he may have sent a troubling message that Labour is not serious about discipline, structure, or reform in education. Whether intentional or not, Starmer gave the impression that he's more concerned with avoiding political risk than solving real problems. And that's what turned a simple policy vote into a public embarrassment. So now, the debate continues outside of Parliament. Should phones be banned in schools? Many teachers say yes, arguing that they are a major distraction and make it harder for students to focus. Parents worry about bullying, exposure to harmful content, and addiction to social media. Some students themselves admit that they'd be more focused without their phones around. Others argue that phones are now part of daily life, and that banning them won't solve everything.
Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised that the Prime Minister would say this. His own government evidence says that phones disrupt nearly half of GCSE classes every single day. Discipline is the #1 issue in many schools. Under the Conservatives, schools became twice as likely to be good or outstanding after going through our behaviour programme. So why did the Education Secretary...
They say schools should teach students how to use technology responsibly instead of trying to take it away. But when classrooms are turning chaotic, and when something as simple as a phone ban could help restore order, shouldn't we at least try? Keir Starmer had the chance to take a strong position on an issue that affects millions of families across the country. He had the opportunity to show real leadership, but instead, he hesitated. He tried to explain it away, but his argument didn't hold up. And in the process, he was publicly embarrassed by a fellow MP who didn't shy away from calling him out. The question now is not just about phones. It's about leadership, priorities, and whether political parties are willing to make tough choices when they matter most. What do you think? Should schools enforce strict phone bans during the school day, or should students be trusted to use their devices responsibly? Let us know in the comments. Which schools do better, those that remove distractions or those that try to manage them?